everyone, and welcome to another episode of Turn Left. I am your host, Indiana's own Dana Black, coming to you live, yes, all the way live from Black Pearl Studios, where we talk about Indiana politics from the left side of things. Listen, I don't know if y'all are political junkies like I am. I'm like the kind of person that listens to, committee meetings and the House floor sessions as background noise while I'm working. Now, a lot of people listen to music or have something else. I want to know what the heck is going on in the State House, because when you're not watching, they do really, really crazy things. But I gotta give a shout out. My superstar elected official in the State House this week has got to be Representative Ed Delaney. Representative Ed Delaney was giving them the business. I mean, if you came up with a crazy bill this week, he was shooting you down. But Dana, you talking about what are these crazy bills? Let me just talk about what came through. Oh, also my second favorite, I got to give a shout out to Senator J.D. Ford, because he made one of his Republican colleagues so mad. I don't mind it, because they make me mad all the time. So I'm figuring if one of my people on my side make them mad, good. And he's always the politest fellow you ever want to meet. He's like the coolest guy ever, but he pissed some people off and I love it. But let's talk about what's going on in the State House, because guys, this is why this election year is so important. We have got to fix that supermajority. And the only way we're going to do that is if we show up at the ballot box and support the candidates who want to represent us. First up, House lawmakers are moving forward with a bill that seeks to remedy Indiana's literacy crisis, despite mounting pushback against a provision that could require thousands of students to repeat the third grade. Senate Bill 1, authored by Senator Linda Rogers of Granger, would require schools to administer the statewide literacy test, I-READ, in second grade, a year earlier than current requirements, and would exempt successful takers from sitting for the exam again. Students who don't pass would receive targeted support to improve their reading over the summer and through third grade, and would have 3 chances to pass the exam. If third graders still can't meet the I-READ standards, legislators want their school districts to retain them. So this whole bill, oh my goodness, SB 1 was on the House floor or in the House Education Committee for at least 4 hours yesterday. They picked this bill apart. There were several concerns. One was, what does it mean to retain somebody in the third grade? What their emotional state might be. Are they decent students but just don't test well? What is that? The other thing was, this is an unfunded mandate, because this is not a budget year. So they're already saying, we're going to give you extra instruction and we're going to have summer school. How are we paying for all of this? And we're going to administer the test over a 2-year period versus 1, which means there's cost associated with administering the test and grading them. Again, they didn't budget for this last year. They didn't budget for it. But now they wanted to implement this bill that's going to have a fiduciary impact on the state of Indiana, but they haven't budgeted for it. So there's a whole lot of problems with SB 1. But just like Representative Smith said, this bill is going to go through no matter what, because we just don't have the numbers. Whether it's good or bad, he made so many amazing points yesterday. One of the points that he made, because he is an educator, he's actually Dr. Smith, if y'all don't know. And he talked about all these people are trying to regulate education and don't know the first thing about how to be an educator. And he says, he talked about so many things that came up over the years, and here we are back at it again. So listen, guys, find out about SB 1, see how it applies to you and your community and where those funds are going to come from. I can tell you to call your legislators, but they don't really listen to you. They don't really care what you have to say. How do I know? The Indiana Capitol Chronicle reports faculty from higher education institutions across Indiana descended on the State House Wednesday to speak out against a contentious bill that would increase lawmakers' oversight of state colleges and universities and push speech in classroom toward intellectual diversity. Senator Spencer Deary of West Lafayette has called his Senate Bill 202 a reform effort intended to reverse declining views of higher education. But dozens of opponents argue that proposed changes could harm students and professors or would overly burden public institutions. Deary and other Republican lawmakers contend that conservative students and faculty members are increasingly ostracized at progressively liberal colleges and university settings, or at least perceived such shunning. Now, listen, they keep going off of this Pew report that came out. And yes, there were some numbers in there that referenced how some conservatives and Republicans felt unsafe and uncomfortable. Well, not even unsafe, just uncomfortable at universities. But there were higher percentages for LGBTQ plus students, Black students, and Muslim students. But I digress, because he really don't care about them. Okay? See, I'm just trying to tell you, let's think about what this bill is really doing and what this bill is really saying. As he says, as an attempt, Deary's bill would change up institution boards and trustees by removing appointment power from alumni councils and pass it off to House and Senate Republicans majority leaders with advice from Democrat minority leaders. It would require boards' existing diversity committees to consider intellectual diversity along cultural diversity in employment policies and faculty complaints. Now, first of all, right now there's an alumni board that picks the trustees. They're saying they're not going to let you do that. We are going to control, as a state supermajority, who is sitting on these boards and trustees. Where have we heard that before? Oh, yeah, Florida did it. Florida did it. Ron DeSantis appointed the people who were going to be on these trustee boards, right? And now he's determining what curriculum has educational value. See, I want you to follow this with me now. The measure also reshapes tenure and promotion policies too. Boards of trustees would be required to prevent a faculty member from getting tenure or a promotion if the board thinks the member is unlikely to foster a culture of free inquiry, free expression, and intellectual diversity, and unlikely to offer students scholarly work from a range of political or ideological frameworks. You remember a couple of years ago when they were having this discussion about DEI at the school boards? Same language, y'all. Same language. But again, I'm going to tell you, Ed Delaney was the dude. One of the fundamental things that ought to happen to you as a young person in college is to be challenged by thoughts you're not familiar with, thoughts you are not comfortable with, thought you don't agree with. He said, and putting this bill would cut that down. And he says, you're requiring the professor, for example, in sociology or political science, to give a range of opinions and to be neutral. In effect, you are neutering your faculty. That's what you're doing. He received a rousing applause after he said that, and of course the gallery was reprimanded. But a joint statement released by Purdue West Lafayette, Indiana University Bloomington, and chapters of the American Association of University Professors said adoption of the Senate bill would severely damage the ability of the two public research universities to recruit and retain outstanding faculty, erasing the state of Indiana's uniquely prominent national profile in higher learning. In its attempt to ensure that all students and faculty at state universities feel confident that they can express their political and intellectual views freely, an aspiration that AAUP shares, SB 202 mandates a system of surveillance and political scrutiny that will instead stifle the free flow of ideas. The statement said it requires that hiring, tenure, and promotion become subject to review that judge faculty based on political criteria, and that post-tenure employment to be contingent on further periodic reviews. These measures would severely constrain academic freedom at our university. I want to go back to the point that they make about it being surveillance. It was brought up by one of the folks that was testifying at the hearing yesterday. One of the representatives asked one of the students how he heard about SB 202. He was already trying to say, yo, where you get the information from? He was interrogating the student about where he learned of the information, and then tried to find out whether it was liberal teachers who were pushing them to come and testify. This is exactly what this bill would do. He actually did it right there on the floor. Guys, the Indiana Republican Party wants to control what you think, how you think, and when you say what you think. And they want to punish you if you don't think the way they do. This is real. And it's coming to a university near you if you guys don't get involved real soon. This is a bad bill because some little dude is all in his feelings because people don't on campuses may or may not like his views. Now check it out. He is suggesting that his views, which could be minority views at liberal universities, should be protected. But do they do anything in that majority to protect the minority views of the Democrats in the General Assembly? Nope. They don't even care. And I'm telling you, it was one person after the next saying this is a bad bill, but they're not going to listen. They're going to pass this bill through. And this is what happens because we don't have enough numbers to stop nonsense from happening. This is why it's so important that we get involved in this, not just this election cycle, but every election cycle. All right, one more because, I want y'all to think about this one. Indiana Public Media reports a bill that allows unlicensed child care providers to serve more children for more hours each week easily advanced out of the Senate committee Wednesday, even as Democrats express unease with the measure. HB 1102 allows unlicensed home-based providers to care for as many as 7 children, up from 5, and a change in the Senate committee ensures no more than 3 of them are less than a year old. But those counts don't include any children in their care who are relatives or their own children. Senator Shelley Yoder voted against the bill. Of course she would. This makes me really uncomfortable expanding in this way without addressing the number of children that might be present in the home already for the parent. Another Democratic senator, Senator J.D. Ford, questioned whether people who regularly visit the home should have background checks. Now, this is when I said that he pissed off somebody, Senator Liz Brown, which I'm not a big fan of. She's got an attitude problem, and I'm saying it. She don't even act like she care if people understand what she's saying or why she's saying it. She's just mean, and she needs some love in her life. Anyway, Senator Liz Brown said that's unreasonable. If you want to talk about government overreach, overregulation, and increasing the cost, now you think about that. But the bill passed 8-2 because, again, we just don't have enough numbers. All I'm going to say is you're going to have unlicensed, unregulated daycare centers who do not fall under the purview of being inspected by the licensing agency of the state are going to have more kids under their care. What could possibly go wrong? That's all I'm saying. Y'all think about that. I put a survey up on my Twitter feed last week, and I asked, would you rather send, if given a choice, would you rather send your child to a licensed or an unlicensed daycare center? See, the State House, instead of actually addressing the real problem why we have a shortage of teachers and why we have a shortage of nurses and why we have a shortage of daycare and health daycare providers, instead of addressing the real issue, which is Indiana continues to write policies that discriminate against people and they don't want to stay here. They don't want to live here. They want to bring down the regulation and requirements. They actually have a bill that says nurses, because we have a nursing shortage, they want to remove the 18 hours of work that they have to put in to get the license. What? Well, instead of making Indiana a place where people want to live, they want to make how you become a professional in the state to be less. So are we getting the best nurses? Are we getting the best teachers? Are we getting the best daycare centers? If this is the route we're going to take, just remove the barriers to entry. But then every time you see a black person who's a pilot, you want to question whether or not that's an affirmative action or DEI hire. Make it make sense. You want to make sure that there's diversity of study and thought in public universities, but you defund the Kinsey Institute, which is teaching you about gender and sexuality. Huh? What? I don't understand. You want to protect these one things, but you want to defund other things. Listen, guys, they want us all to think the exact same way. And if you don't think like them, and if you don't act like them, and if you don't follow their rules, then you don't count. We'll just take your tax money and do what we want to do. So, guys, show up to the polls. Show up to the polls, because people, these are some bad bills that are happening. I just need y'all to understand these are bad bills. All right, it's Black History Month, and I'm sorry that I didn't get a chance to have a show last week. My guest got sick. It happens. But in honor of listening to the Supreme Court argument on whether or not the Orange Menace has, free reign to commit crimes with automatic immunity, I wanted to highlight this amazing hero in not just American history, or not just in Black history, but in American history. Constance Baker Motley. Constance Baker Motley was born on September 14th, 1921 in New Haven, Connecticut. She was the 9th of 12 children born to Rachel Huggins and McCullough Alva Baker, immigrants from the Caribbean island Nevis. Her mother was a community activist and founder of the New Haven NAACP. Motley graduated from New York University in 1943 and attended Columbia Law School. She began her career at LDF after receiving her law degree in 1946. LDF's first female attorney, Motley rose to the prominence as the chief courtroom strategist of the civil rights movement. In addition to successfully litigating cases that ended segregation in Memphis restaurants and at the whites-only lunch counters in Birmingham, Alabama, Motley defended Reverend Martin Luther King Jr.'s right to march in Albany, Albany, Georgia. Motley claimed her greatest professional achievement was the reinstatement of the 1,100 Black children in Birmingham who had been expelled for taking part in street demonstrations in the spring of 1963. Motley faced the danger of her work head-on, from driving through KKK territory to defend the rights of Black students to attend the University of Georgia, to spending hours in county jails across the Deep South helping to secure the release of detained civil rights activists like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Motley was a key architect in the fight for desegregation in the South. From 1945 to 1964, Motley worked on all of the major school desegregation cases brought by the LDF. She led the litigation of the case that integrated the University of Georgia and directed the legal campaign that resulted in the admission of James H. Meredith to the University of Mississippi in 1962, paving the way for the integration of universities across the South. See, when I see Republicans trying to take us back, I think about Black women who continue to fight and argue on behalf of all of us. Constance Baker Motley is one of those folks. Stop talking about, if we're a lawyer, it's a DEI hire. Stop talking about if you see us in the cockpit, it's an affirmative action hire. Because I read something amazing. If we are DEI hires, then y'all white supremacist hires. I'm just saying. We are capable of so many things. And so, guys, but I need y'all to show up. I need y'all to show up at the polls because the Indiana General Assembly, they stress me out. All right. I got to give a shout out to my sponsor, Bohm's Unique Boutique. Today's show is brought to you by Bohm's Unique Boutique. Click on the QR code. And for all Turn Left listeners, you can get a 10% discount on your order by using the code DEMOCRAT. Be sure to visit www.bohmsuniqueboutique.com. Democrats, are you looking for an affordable content creation option? If so, look no further than Black Pearl IT Solutions and Black Pearl Studios. Indiana's own Dana Black is providing many of the communication wraparound services any Democratic organization needs. No matter the size of the budget, Indiana's own has you covered. Just scan the QR code or visit www.blackpearl_its.com. All right, all right, y'all. I know I had a lot of rant today. I had to make up for last week and not having a show, but let's get to the guests. And you know what? The beautiful part about this show is that we can go as long as we want to because it's my show. When you own it, you can do what you want. And I'm excited about the fact that I have two candidates on tonight who are running for that very state house that I just finished complaining about. Yes. First up, I want to introduce you to Hollie Payton. First of all, I've met her multiple times. We hang out, we kicks it. This is my home girl. She's running in House District 73. Y'all give it up. Hollie Payton, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And my first time meeting, and I'm excited about it because I love their photo shot, like their shot that they had telling you that they're running for office. Y'all give it up, running in House District 97, Sarah Shydale. Sarah, welcome to the show.
Hello, it's great to be here tonight.
I love it. I love it. Okay, guys, was there anything that I talked about in my rant that you want to comment on? Did I ruffle your feathers just a little bit? Anybody can jump in on that.
I totally agree with you about the I-read and the third grade retention. There's so many things that they could do to help these students rather than just hold them back. And nobody has talked about COVID coming and playing an effect on all of this as well. So I totally agree with everything you said.
Love it. Sarah?
Absolutely, same here. I feel like lately we've been very lacking in our education standards, and holding kids back just based on test scores is not a way to do it, honestly.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you guys for jumping in on that because you know what? I can rant, and I just wanted to see if you had a rant in you. All right, we're going to start with Hollie first. Hollie, tell the people who you are and where you come from.
Hey, everyone. So my name is Hollie Payton. I am originally from Osgood, Indiana. Yes, it's a very, very small town. I'm sure hardly anyone has heard of it.
I haven't.
So it is a very, very small town. I currently live in Greensburg, Indiana. So coming from a small town, I have those small town roots where I know what it means to live in a rural area. I have faced many medical problems. My freshman year in high school, I got diagnosed with mono and I missed 6 weeks of school because it was pretty serious. And then my sophomore year, I got diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. So I had to learn how to give injections and all of that.
Wow.
And then my junior year, I was in a serious car accident where I was in a coma for a week and I had a plate put in my head. So I had a traumatic brain injury.
Wow.
So that was a lot for high school, right?
Yes. It's a lot for life.
Yeah. So when I say that healthcare matters, like I personally have a lot of connections with fighting for personal healthcare. My husband and I have been married for almost 22 years, and we have a 13-year-old who is autistic. So he is absolutely amazing, but fighting for disability rights as well, that is near and dear to my heart. I also am fighting for equality, regardless, just equality across the board. I really came into my own, I feel like, in the year 2020 when the whole George Floyd thing came about. And I realized that even though I had suffered personally from medical issues, that I have set in white privilege, and it really opened my eyes. So I attended protests and I became an activist because of that. I did start an LGBTQIA group for Greensburg. It was the first time in Greensburg's history that came about. So just fighting for basic human rights. That's what it all comes down to. If I always tell people, if I could have a slogan, it's be a kind human. It really shouldn't be hard. Just be a kind human, right? let everyone have the choice to be themselves. So that's kind of where I'm coming from in my campaign.
I love it. I love it. Wow. There's so much to unpack right there, but I'm going to get back to it. Sarah, tell the people who you are and where you come from.
Well, I was born in Greenwood, Indiana, and I was raised most of my life in Bargersville. It's a little town just south of Greenwood that's starting to come up on its own with the Center Grove schools and all. I was raised by a very Republican and very Catholic father who had very loud opinions, let's say, and I didn't know it for quite a bit of my life, but I figured out early in my high school years that I was transgender, as it's probably obvious that I'm not a cis woman. I grew up in pretty deep poverty. Had a rocky relationship with both my parents, but my mother is my saving grace. I graduated high school not really knowing what I wanted to do with my life, and I slowly found my way to working with the state. I've worked in the Family and Social Services Administration for several years now, doing my best behind the scenes to help Hoosiers the best I can. Currently, I am helping to administer a program that's in service of helping people over 65, blind and disabled, find and keep housing and medical care, which is part of the RCAP program. I've been working behind the scenes as best I can for quite a while now, and I'm not as accomplished as some of my fellow candidates. But I feel like the time has been ripe to try and lend my own voice to how Indiana is run. Oh. And I figured the best way to do that would be running for a House representative.
I tell you what, y'all are some compelling humans. I mean, these stories, both of you, your story for why you want to run for office mimics mine, and that there was an issue that came up and you said, doggone it, no more. And to be brave to share those stories. And Sarah, I'm gonna be honest with you, I didn't know till you said something. I don't make no assumptions. Because see, look, nobody can tell what I am either. So when we talk about pronouns, I always tell people I use she, he, they, because I like to keep them guessing. I mean, yeah, but that's so no, I don't make assumptions. But I love that you guys found your personal voice in the work that you were doing, and then now you want to take your personal voice and add it to the legislature. Why do you think it's important that you all have gone through these personal lived experiences? And what is it that you think that you'll bring different to the State House than what you're seeing now? Sarah, we'll start with you.
Well, the makeup of a person can be judged by their own experiences. If you grew up with a different past, you probably wouldn't be the same person you are now. And in the environment I grew up in, deep in the south of Indiana, well, mid-south of Indiana, with a very Republican father, with very outstretched political opinions, and growing up as liberal as I did, you want to be the better change than those ones seeking to keep people repressed, in my opinion.
I love it. Hollie?
That was a great answer, Sarah. One thing my husband and I have always taught our son, and I stick true to this statement, it doesn't have to happen to you for it to matter to you. So I honestly feel if we had more people working in the State House making laws that actually saw that, like, it doesn't have to happen to you personally for you to make laws, I don't know, to treat people equally. Like, there's a concept. And I agree with Sarah. Like, if I didn't go through those hurdles that I went through in life, I wouldn't be who I am. And I feel like I'm a strong person because of those things I went through.
I literally was just about to ask, do you think that the things that you went through in life made you stronger? And you answered it, Hollie. But Sarah, do you think it, going through what you went through, because I know what it's like to be out. I know what it's like to come out. I know what goes on. And then, to be the black kid, the black woman who comes out as a masculine lesbian, it wasn't no fun. but it builds up your character and your strength. Do you think, Sarah, that some of the things that you've gone through made you stronger and help you be able to fight for the people of Indiana?
Absolutely. I was forged in fire and I came out better for it the other side.
I love it. I love it. Guys, there's a lot of stuff that's happening in the State House. So I'm going to ask you first, Holly, and I know you mentioned a little bit, but I want you to tell me why you want to represent District 73.
The biggest reason I want to represent District 73 is our district is very high in Republican, right? But I want to show people that I don't care what you have behind your name. If you have an R, if you have a D, we can, when we elect someone to represent us at the State House to write those laws, we want someone who will represent us all, right? Not just the rich white guys, the rich Republicans. I just feel like, since I am originally from a small town, smaller than Greensburg, that I understand those struggles. I understand the struggles with poverty. I understand the getting access to health care. I understand all of that. And I just feel that if you have someone that's been through hardships in life, they're more apt to write laws and fight for those who maybe look different than your average state representative in the State House.
So, you do live in you come from a small town, and honestly, the town you live in now is kind of small in comparison to where I live, right? I live in Indianapolis. And you see the harm that policies are having on your community. How does it make you feel when your communities are sending these same clowns back to the State House, knowing that they're going to continue to write policies? For example, the wetlands bill, right, where they're trying to reduce the number of wetlands. That hurts farmers. That hurts the environment. Or the fact that, there are many counties across the state that don't have emergency care, right? And because of policies that are being written by the people that they're sending back to office. How does it make you feel when you see, like, guys, what are you doing? What do you say? What do you think?
Right. It makes me so upset. And it's almost like some people don't realize they're voting against their own interest. Right. And so just to kind of draw that out and really let people know, hey, we live, like, my area is a big farm area. Why are we sending these people to the State House that are putting your farmland in jeopardy? Right. So I'm not going to the State House for myself. I'm going to the State House to represent this area. And the area I live in, like I said, is a farm area. So a lot goes into that, and just kind of peeling people's eyes open and letting them know, you have to send someone that's going to fight for your livelihood. The person we have now isn't very boisterous on the wetlands or on anything else that really pertains to our area. So hopefully I can peel their eyes open in those instances.
And see, Bargersville is a little different in that it's a suburb of Indianapolis, right? It's pretty much a south suburb. 69 goes right through it. But do you see the same things that I'm mentioning in the rural areas? Are you seeing that in the suburbs where the people that are representing you, the policies that they're writing are harmful to your communities, Sarah?
Very much so, especially since Bargersville is, last time I checked, almost entirely rural land and farmland, rows and rows of corn and soybeans. And it's the same thing that Holly brought up, is that people are sending representatives that are just destroying their own interests. And, like, we only get one earth. We can't destroy our environment like this, especially when it comes to growing our own food. If we can't grow our own food, what are we going to do?
Exactly. I mean, good Lord, growing our own food. And these are the things that I wanted to highlight in our conversation tonight, because you guys come from very Republican controlled areas, but you're a part of those communities. And How do you think you'll be able to, and Sarah, I'm gonna start with you. How do you think you'll be able to have those conversations with your neighbors, even though they may have voted against you before? How do you think you'll be successful in having conversations with your neighbors about, hey, let's try something different?
Well, as a representative of the people, it's your solemn duty to do the will of your constituents. And if it takes having real conversations with real people, going door to door, then so be it. You should know your neighbor, and you should be acting in the interests of your neighbor. And they should know that you're acting in their best interest. They shouldn't have to worry about you possibly voting for something that could be bad for them. And especially since while I did grow up in Rogersville, I'm not quite there anymore. I'm in Indianapolis now, of course, and how I'm running for District 97. Um, and all the people around me, while not all liberal, are still very kind people, very understanding people that still need to be represented. That still need to be represented in a understanding and compassionate fashion.
I like that
Not
answer because, even though you will represent a 97 and 73 respectively, bills that you will vote on are going to impact the entire state. So I'm glad that you actually said that, right, Sarah?
Mhm.
Yeah. And Holly, how are those conversations going for you down in small town Indiana?
I actually think they're going really well. I the first thing I say about myself is I'm a real person, right? I'm not a seasoned politician, and I think that helps. That I'm a real person. I've went through the same struggles that a lot of people in my area have gone through and are going through now. And that's the thing. And I know I have to connect with my constituents, but kind of like what Sarah was saying, across the board of the state, I'm a real person. I am not some person with a bunch of accolades behind my name, right? Like I am a real person, and I feel like since I have struggled through different things, that helps me connect. I feel like if you're just honest with people and you share part of your story, then you get to connect with people. Regardless of if they're voting Republican or Democrat, you can connect with people. And that's really what I've been trying to do. I don't care if you're a Republican, right?
Hmm.
Like my goal is to enact laws and write bills that will be best for everyone, regardless of how you typically vote.
I love it.
So just being honest and just sharing stories.
I love it. Indiana's own Dana Black, turn left. Guys, if you are liking and enjoying what you're hearing, because I am, would you please click the donate link and donate to these candidates tonight? All the this is yes, every week I'm doing a fundraiser. Every week. Please help these candidates because they need the dollars to buy yard signs, to buy water for door knockers, whatever it is. Could you just give a little bit of money to help these candidates out? All right, so we've been talking about writing policies the whole time, right? And I love that because it's not a popularity contest, it's a policy larity contest, if that's a word, because it's the policies that are impacting people. Sarah, everybody has at least three key issues that they want to focus in on, or there are three issues that you're talking about when you knock on doors. What are the three main issues that your campaign is talking about in these streets?
My three primary concerns are homelessness, mental health, and drug abuse issues. As someone living within the downtown core, I see all of these basically every day as I'm walking to and from work. Just one day while I was handing out flyers with my partner, we were followed by some random person who was talking nonsense and visually tweaking and this isn't the first time either. I run into homeless people or drug addicts almost every single day, and it's criminal that we're not taking more care of the issue, and that we're either trying to do things that aren't helping or trying to pretend like it doesn't exist.
Mm, mm. And we also tried to criminalize them. right? We've tried to make it illegal at certain points. We've tried to write legislation to make it illegal to be homeless, which I don't even understand. That don't even make sense. But do you think it speaks to unawareness, a lack of compassion? Why do you think our state house is not really trying to address? Because you named three whammies there, right? Drug addiction, homelessness, and I'm old and I forgot the third one because it was what did you say the first one was?
Mental health
Mental
issues.
health. See, that's why I didn't want. Probably because my mental ain't all that healthy. Do you think it's just a lack of an unawareness, or just not the right kind of sympathy that's needed?
I'd say it's a mix of a lack of awareness and active, what's the word? Active efforts on the part of many Republicans trying to criminalize just the act of being poor. And as soon as someone, even if someone just has one bad month, they're out on the streets, and if being homeless is criminalized, then they go jail for it, and that's criminal in and of itself. How we allow that, I don't understand, because it's not helping anything.
No, it's not. And then you end up compounding whatever mental stress and anxiety that human may have without actually offering real solutions to the problem. Hollie, what are the three main issues that you're talking about on your campaign?
Sarah, you had some great points, so I give props to you for that. The three issues that I'm going to focus on is women's rights, disability rights, and housing inequality. Women's rights, of course, we should be able to choose what medical procedure we need to have done on our own body, right? We should be free, have the freedom to live free from violence, right? Domestic abuse is a big thing. So women's rights encompasses a bunch of different things. Disability rights, of course, is near and dear to my heart because of my son. Also, the legislation that is going on right now with the FSSA and the whole $1 billion deficit. So that's pretty important. And then housing inequality, of course, like in my area, for example, there's houses and there's apartments, but nobody can afford it, right? So we have a homeless problem in my area, my district as well. So those are just three things that I feel very strongly about, and it affects, I see it affecting my area, but as Sarah pointed out, these things affect the whole state.
Raise your left hand if you believe in body autonomy. Raise your left hand, raise your left hand, raise your left hand. Because in Indiana, if a young person needs gender affirming care, or if a woman needs reproductive health care, Indiana basically says, y'all don't know what y'all need. You don't know how to manage your own. And it's the irony of having this conversation with the two of you is that you both, you either are living it, have lived it, know people that's lived it, and not just secondhand, but firsthand. What does it mean, since we brought it up, since body autonomy seems to be something that Republicans only want for themselves, how do you express your frustration with the last pieces of legislation over the last couple of years that restrict abortion access and restrict gender affirming care? Hollie, I'm gonna start with you. What kind of feelings and emotions do you get? Because I want to know.
So when I talk to people about this, and again, my area is very Republican. When I talk to people about abortion, for example, a lot of people that I've spoken with will say, well, I don't think abortion should be used for XYZ, but it could be used for ABC, right? So I let them know, okay, when I was pregnant with our son, I had type 1 diabetes. So I was a high risk pregnancy. I had to go to a specialist. So my husband and I had to have this conversation. This is a real life thing. We had to have a conversation. What happens if it comes down to, right? one of us. And then I share that story, and people are like, oh,
Yeah.
well, in that case. And I said, but what gives you the right to judge what case is right and what case is wrong?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Just let people make their own decisions. And the same goes with gender affirming care. In the area of the world I live in, it's very sheltered, right? And I have met some absolutely amazing activists who are just phenomenal human beings who I'm like, they all have touched my heart, and hearing their personal stories and their personal struggles, it's just so upsetting that people just cast judgment upon others when they've never had that lived experience themselves. So I try to convey that in a way like, well, what gives you the right to judge on how someone else feels they should live, right? And what gives you the right to judge what someone else does with their body?
Yeah. And Sarah, I'm gonna go one more step, and I think it's HB 1291. They are trying to, well, it's gonna happen. Well, if it goes through the committees, 1291 basically changes all the language in Indiana code from gender to biological sex. Right? They're basically saying, biological sex, and they're basically trying to legislate away. Not just that we don't want you to get gender affirming care, but we're going to legislate away. So if you have a discrimination issue, you have something that you need to bring for the state for benefits, if you don't use what was on your original birth certificate, then we are not even going to service you. Talk about what it means for body autonomy, and then talk about like bills like 1291 and what that actually means to someone who is literally living it every day. They're trying to legislate you away, bro. I'm like, Sarah, they trying to legislate you away. It pisses me off.
Really, the biggest way I could possibly think to explain it to you is that it is simply repugnant. The fact that these people, these Republicans and these old men and these people who just want to strip away freedom for the sake of control and for, what's the word? Control and power. The cruelty is the purpose. They want to be cruel on purpose, especially when it comes to things like abortion. Like, you should have access to abortion no matter what. That should not be something that they can take away from you, because you either have bodily autonomy or you don't. And they have no right to take that away from you. And speaking of gender affirming care, as a trans person, it's doubly repugnant because every legislative session I live in almost paralyzing fear that I'm going to be legislated away, that I'm going to have to either completely change who I am just to live in everyday society, or I'm going to have to leave the state. And I don't want to do that. That was one of the possibilities I had to have in my mind the last legislative session last year before I decided to run for office. It was either see how the legislative session is going to go and possibly leave, or stay and try to fix it as best I could. And it's hard enough right now to access gender affirming care. There's not very many places here I can go to. I started in a different state, and finding reliable access to the medicine I need and cost-effective access to friendly doctors and therapists has been just an absolute nightmare. Doubly so that they're talking about stripping my rights away one bill at a time, like for the biological sex rule change with 12. Yeah, it's terrifying. There's a newsletter run by a certain wife of a transgender congresswoman in another state, and it's called Aaron in the Morning. And I have to keep that up on my phone all the time. I look at it every month to see how much worse Indiana is getting. I have to watch legislation rolling through the the House and Senate that I can't do anything about because I'm in no position to do anything about it, and the legislators don't want to listen to us about this.
They don't.
Especially,
Go ahead, especially.
especially since the next generation of voters is growing year by year.
Mm-hmm.
Young people are getting to voting age more and more every single year,
Mm-hmm.
and our legislators continue to lengthen the age gap. The We should not have geriatric people running a state that they're not going to have to see in 10 years. That's not fair, especially to the next generation of voters.
Well, and see, it's on purpose, though. It's literally the white cisgender Christian straight hetero whatever male. Their numbers are dwindling, and so they are actively putting measures in place to make it extremely difficult for them to lose control when they are in the full minority, right? It's not that far away that people of color are going to overtake Caucasians, white people, right? But then there are so many liberal leaning, left leaning white people who may not they're not necessarily in the alphabet soup, but they like, yo, I'm union, and all these people are seeing their power diminish, and what they're doing is they're putting all these little things in place that will ensure minority rule, kind of like in South Africa before apartheid ended. I'm just gonna throw it out there. It's gonna be like South Africa. Yo, Indiana's own Dana Black turned left. I have a question. Yesterday, in Kansas City, the Kansas City Chiefs were honoring their Super Bowl winning team. And unfortunately, a shootout happened. Like Missouri, or like Indiana, Missouri had concealed carry, constitutional carry, and concealed carry. So, one of the things that we hear gun rights, Second Amendment dumbasses, excuse me, I'm sorry, I cussed, say is that the only thing you need when you have a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. But they had over 800 police officers at that parade, at that festival, and the shots still rang out. Indiana is we have the NBA All-Star game here in Indianapolis this week. I'm nervous. Talk to me about how you want to try to fix the amount of deaths that are happening because guns are just everywhere, and anybody can, no background checks, and anybody can go just arm themselves and decide to shoot, and by the time the good guy with a gun, all 800 of them, somebody's already dead. Hollie, talk about this insatiable appetite of shooting each other that we have in America.
Yeah, it's absolutely heartbreaking. What happened yesterday, I don't understand. There were citizens that took down one of the shooters, and none of them were armed with a gun, right? Like, let's use some common sense gun laws. Nobody's coming to take your guns away. That's not the point, right? We need common sense gun laws. We need background checks. We need, there's just so many things that we can write into law, especially in this state. I mean, clear across the country, honestly, but it's just almost like people want to live in the wild, wild west. It is absolutely mind-blowing.
I don't want no parts of that. Sarah?
It's an awful thing to see, especially since it seems like it just happens more and more often nowadays. We've become so desensitized to mass shootings that it's just another day in the news for us. And Republicans have seemed like that they've dug their heels into the sand, and they've just started going, because you don't want me to have these things, I'm going to want them even more. That's their MO. And just like you said, even if there is a good guy with a gun, there's still a bad guy with a gun that really shouldn't have had one in the first place. We need stronger red flag laws. We need police to actually investigate the red flag cases. We need stronger background checks. You shouldn't be able to just buy a gun at a trade show just without a background check or anything. I'm all for having arms for good reason, but letting them fall into the hands of some psychopath that's going to be charging to a crowd is the fact that we've let it become so normalized is disgusting.
I think I saw a number this week that said we've had 49 mass shootings in 45 days. That means there was a couple of days there where there was more than one. Like, it's just, you're right. And this is America now. We can't say this is not America. It is America. And it's also interesting to me that they have dug in their heels. You will not infringe on my Second Amendment right, but they don't mind infringing on our First Amendment right and body autonomy, the rights of body autonomy at any stretch of the imagination or anytime they want. Another thing that I read this week, which I found encouraging, was that 2023 was the year of the strike. And they talked about how more unions have gone on strike in 2023 than in decades past. Talk about your feelings, Sarah. I'm gonna start with you. Talk about your feelings about unions and what they bring to our communities all over the nation, but specifically here in Indiana.
Well, first of all, I consider my household to be a strong pro-union household. I feel like everyone should be in a union, either at some point in their lives or as often as they can possibly be. Unions are only at the benefit of the workers and enable the workers to have a collective bargaining power that otherwise they just would not have. Such as that Indiana is a right to work state. We need unions now more than ever, especially with the rampant overinflation and the price gouging and the fact that none of our wages have been raised significantly in years. It's scaring business owners and capitalists because they know it's going to take power away from them and place the power back where it should be, in the hands of the working class.
I love it. I love Hollie.
Yes. So I grew up, my dad worked at a factory all his life, and he was a member of a union. That's what I remember when I was little, right? My husband was in a union for 13 years. The factory he works at now is not unionized. However, when he was in a union, like, we see those benefits. And how Sarah just said, inflation is crazy. The minimum wage, we're still at 7 something an hour for minimum wage, right? Like
7.25.
Yeah, like we can't get by living on that, right? So unions definitely help your blue collar workers, definitely.
I would even go further and say, the UAW this past summer demonstrated the power of unions, because even after their contract was signed, Toyota raised their wages and their non-union people. Like, unions elevate everybody, and people, when they want to talk about there's good and bad in everything, right? You're going to have good union leaders and you're going to have not so great union leaders. But when you have the ability to collective bargain with your brothers and sisters, it's a totally different animal. And when you have the ability to hit them in the bottom line, trust, know, and believe, they're going to show up, Okay, so we talked about unions. We talked about education quite a bit. I mean, because I don't even have kids. I never had kids because I'm a chicken. It looked like it hurt. But I never had a child have to go through the education system. But I seem to be talking about a lot about education because I'm getting older and I need kids to be ready to take care of my old ass when I can't read my pill bottle. So I'm not gonna do that right now. But I do want to ask one thing. When you find yourself winning your election and you're going to have conversations on the other side of the aisle, tell us what your style for reaching across the aisle will look like? And I'm going to start with you, Sarah. What is that going to look like? How are you going to, you're both elected, y'all colleagues. What does that look like? What is your leadership style like?
Well, I want to be the driving change I see in the world, and I want people to understand my viewpoint. I'm hoping my Republican colleagues across the aisle would be able to see eye to eye with me as both a fellow representative. And I know they probably won't, but I can hope, right? I can hope that logical arguments and being a decent human being would win the day. But persistence and trying to make my opponents see reason, even if they're stonewalling against me.
I can dig it. Hollie, what is your leadership style?
So because of the medical things that I have been through, just my personal style is not to give up, right? So if I am explaining something to someone from across the aisle and they're not listening, they're talking over top of me, or I can tell they're just zoned out, I'm going to try to think of a different way to state what I'm trying to cross so it hits home to them, right? I actually had a conversation with someone in my town when I first formed our LGBTQIA plus group, and this person said to me, why are you so persistent about letting people live this way out in public? Why don't they just live that way behind closed doors? So yes, Dana, I just scream. I held my complaint and I presented to them how my son was when he was a toddler. People connect and can draw dots to find the bigger picture when you use children, right? So I used an example of how my son had a hard time regulating his emotions when he was a toddler, and how people in the store would stare, adults would stare and make comments and things like that. And this person said, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe they did that." And I said, now let's flip that around to those who are in the LGBTQIA plus community. They get that exact same treatment, right? And they shouldn't. They're just normal adults. They just want to live their life. And so trying to word things in a way that people are like, oh, they have that aha moment. Like, I think that's important to kind of reach across the aisle.
Wow, I like that, because you sound like you got a lot of patience. I do not. I literally recognize, because you know me, I've always wanted to be an elected official, and I'm an elected official groupie. But after watching that State House, I realized I may not have the temperament to be in there, because I'm going to cuss one of them fools out, because they deserve it. Especially that Wesco character. He deserves it. A whole bunch of them. I'm dropping names. See, that's why I can't go in the State House. I'm going to send y'all there. Indiana's own Dana Black. Turn left. Guys, click on their donate link. Help them raise the money that they need to be competitive in these races, because these are real people. They have real life lived experiences to add context. You know, the same thing that Deary wants at the university. You know what I'm saying? They have real life experiences that they can bring to our State House. All right. It's already 7:00. I apologize. You know, these interviews go by so daggone fast. Sarah, tell the people where they can find you.
Primarily, you can find me on my website. I'm currently still awaiting donations actually by the domain. So right now it's at shydale.wixsite.com/Shydale for house.
I love it. And do you have any events coming up?
None currently, but I'm working on planning out some.
Okay. And tell us what help you need from us.
Volunteers and donations. I can't buy signs, pens, pencils, buttons, anything without donations, and I always need boots on the ground to get the word out.
I love it. Hollie, tell the people where they can find you.
Yeah, so right now I'm primarily on Facebook, so you can reach me at Hollie Payton for Indiana. I do have a website, I just don't have that linked yet, so that will be coming in the next few days. And then I need help primarily with, I need a good team, so volunteers and donations, just like Sarah said. The donations help with the signs and helping my volunteers, whether that's water or snacks or whatever, to keep their energy going. So volunteers and donations.
And do you have any events coming up?
I do. So I have a campaign launch scheduled for Saturday, March 2nd in St. Paul at the Brunner Event Center.
I love it. I love it. Make sure you send that over to me so I can share it out to the people about your event. Thank you guys so much for sharing your stories with us. First of all, I love it when I get to meet new people. So Sarah, you were a joy tonight. And I am so excited about your run, right? Do y'all know we have actually three trans women running for office this year? 3.
I did not know that.
We have 3. Yes. I don't know the young lady's name. But Christine Bohm who's the District 3 chair, has a candidate that's running. I can't remember if they're running for council. I think they're running for county council. You, Sarah, and my dear friend Veronica Pedrell is running for the state Senate. So listen, Indiana, and Republicans, I know you want to pretend like there's no trans people in Indiana, but they here and they're running for office there. That's what I'm talking about. That's that fight we need. No, I'm not going to let policy just happen to me. I'm going to happen to policy. So our congratulations to the Democratic Party, who continues to be the big tent and continues to encourage people from all walks of life. We don't always get it right. I'm not saying that. But we are still encouraging people to run no matter where you come from, how you live, or how you love. And speaking of loving people in special way, thank you to all of our sponsors and the people who showed up to our Indiana Stonewall Love is Love February fundraiser. We were able to raise quite a bit of money because, what do we do with our money? We give it out to our endorsed candidates towards the end of the year. So, hey, you too, make sure you try to fill out the application for the endorsement process. Keep an eye on when we get that calendar out. But, it just we had the mayor was there. Congressman Carson was there. We had 2 city county council folks there, and Representative Herron from Louisville was our keynote speaker. Oh my God, she blew it out the water. She's so real. She brought the funk. I love the way she talked to the people. And then we also had a visitor from Illinois, Elevated Access. They actually provide transportation to individuals who need to either seek reproductive care or gender affirming care, and they can't get it in their state. They will fly them to a location. So they're a nonprofit. Look them up, Elevated Access. And also, if you are, say, like you're in the northern part of Indiana and you want to get down to the State House, they will also assist with transportation that way. So there was good information that was shared, but it was all about love, because it's love is love. And I love how, our allies show up for us in the LGBTQ plus community. At least Democrats do, right? I love how they show up, they donate. Prosecutor Mears is always one of the first ones. Him and Representative Carson are always one of the first ones to write the big check. Excuse me, they were our gold sponsors. So listen, all the people that showed up, I hope, because my girl Cherry was the photographer. So we got great photos, but it's all about how do we help Democrats get elected? Okay? Nothing else matters. We have to figure out whatever, I've been saying it all year, time, talent, or treasure, whatever you have, bring it to our candidates. This is not the year to sit on the sidelines. If I see one more broad commercial loving the fact that he's endorsed by the 91 criminal indicted for whatever it is, how many criminal charges he got, I'm endorsed by the Orange Menace, and he's the person that wants to lead our state. Trust, don't believe, we going straight to hell. I'm telling you, this state is in trouble. Yeah, I said it. I didn't mean to say it. I try to not curse because kids watch, but I'm telling you, we are in a situation where white supremacists want to take over our state 100%. Homophobes want to take over our state 100%. Misogynists want to take over our state 100%. These are the people. They want to deny access to the voting box. There was a bill denying people access to the voting box, making it harder for us to vote going through the chambers. These are things that are happening. I'm begging y'all to get involved. Time, talent, or treasure. Because y'all don't want me to show up down there at that State House. It gonna get ugly when I get down there. All right, I want to thank y'all for tuning in tonight. I really do appreciate y'all that tune in and watch the show on the YouTube and Spotify. I'm going to keep bringing you the candidates who are running for office. But in the meantime, I will holler at you next week. Peace. Turn Left is the property of Black Pearl IT Solutions. Executive producer, Indiana's own Dana Black. Music by www.bensound.com.